Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to continue our look at Dark Horse Presents. We'll be looking at number 128 through number 130. Let's get started. So, we start off number 128 with a beautiful wraparound cover from Dave Cooper, featuring his Dan and Larry characters. And we'll see them inside shortly. It's a very weird cover for Dave Cooper. Look how dark this is. I don't know if it was maybe printed wrong, but it looks great. But it's just very kind of dark, this artwork. I like how it has these little insets of some of the stories inside. I always like stuff like that. Contents page. And now we have Dan and Larry in Don't Do That by Dave Cooper. Now, these stories are very interesting and odd. So, basically, Dave Cooper is doing like a very, very veiled autobio with this comic. It takes place in this surreal Dave Cooper-like world. Ducks are hanging out with whatever he is, a robot mutant, and with dog people and humans. And it's very surreal. And but if you've ever read interviews with Dave Cooper, when he was like 12 years old, he was working at Aircel Comics, which was pretty much run by Barry Blair. Barry Blair drew these comics like, what were they called? Elf Lord. And they were kind of creepy because they were like kind of trying to be like ElfQuest fantasy. But these elves basically look like very, very young boys. And they were always wearing like G-strings, and they had cute little butts all the time. They were always kind of showcasing that. So there's something weird about this Barry Blair guy. Apparently, in interviews, Dave Cooper was working for this, guy in his mid-20s. He was hanging out with him. They were pals. When he was like 12, and he was assisting. He was learning the ropes. Barry Blair was kind of his mentor. But every now and then, Barry would kind of grab him and stuff, and in an inappropriate manner. Luckily, Dave could always just scare him off and just be like, "Hey, cut that out. You're being weird." But so it's very interesting that this comic touches on some of their relationship, which is a very odd relationship. Just the fact that a 12-year-old's hanging out with a 26-year-old. So Dan is the duck. That's Dave Cooper's persona or whatever, avatar. And Larry is supposed to be Barry Blair. And these are basically a series of short stories. This is going to be a 5-part series, but each one kind of is self-contained. So we see Dan and Larry hanging out by the creek or somewhere. And they're playing with this toy. And we realize that Larry's kind of a weird guy. Like, he's got a temper. He's moody. But Dan likes him, they're friends. God, I love this art so much. Dave Cooper's so good. So they're just walking around kibitzing. I love this bird design, crazy. They find these big birds kind of fly off, and they find little tiny versions of these birds. And Dan is very charmed by them. And then all of a sudden, we see Larry get kind of all sweaty, and he kind of just jumps on Dan. And he kind of has him pinned down, and he kind of flips him over and pins him down. He says, "This is how we should play sometimes." And Dan says, "Larry, don't do that." And finally he says, "Larry." And so, a neighbor, I was going to say like a resident here, but he's living in this tree with a ladder on it. God, I love the way Dave Cooper just makes these bizarre worlds. But they're our world, the way the characters act, they're kind of normal. I mean, not normal, but, it's all real human emotions, but in this crazy, kind of beautiful and ugly world. And so I guess this kind of frightens Larry off. And it's almost like he wakes up from being in a daze. He's like, huh? Oh, what? And Dan is just like, come on, we should just get going. But then he says, what did you do that for? And Larry says, do what? Like he doesn't remember it. He says that he has blackouts from his painkillers. And Dan doesn't believe him. He says, you're not on any painkillers. And basically he just wants him to acknowledge it. He's basically still going to be his friend. And then they make it to this place, which I guess they were heading for. Dan says, there it is. And it's some kind of, I guess, weird water fountain. And right as Larry's about to take a sip, it breaks. And he says, thanks a lot, Dan. That's it. It's so weird. But when you know the context, this comic's very bizarre. That this is the way Dave Cooper decided to work this out, I guess, with art. Really masking the actual events in this crazy, world. Barry Blair doesn't look like this, let me tell you. And Dave Cooper's not a duck. It's very, very interesting. We got 2 pages of letters. And now we have chapter 3 of Metal Fur, The Quarry. So we see that German, well, it's basically a Nazi, this guy, and Mr. Goebbels. And his quarry is still on the run. That's scientist Jones. So he's furious. Meanwhile, back where we left off, Jones has put on his battle suit that he invented and is fighting these mercenaries. And this is some pretty crazy, gory action. Once again, you can see that this kind of could be in heavy metal, It's very, very violent. So basically, we just have a battle royale in this church. Really like the art. I still don't know who does the art of the team. I forgot to mention, guys, sorry. I always forget their names. Stan Manukian and Vince Raucher. And it just says written and illustrated by them, so we don't know. I like how Jones uses this giant crucifix to whomp this guy. It's like a 30-foot high crucifix. Anyone else for confession, he says. That's a pretty good tough guy line. He has this one thing that just shoots one of those little rubber darts on the guy's forehead. And he laughs. He's just like, yeah, that's it. And then it ticks and it explodes. His whole, turns his brain to jelly, basically. So then Jones, after beating the shit out of these guys, takes off the outfit, the armor, and walks outside. So he heads over to the Waxman Plastic Company. And basically he's delivering the armor, the invention. And then I think this is supposed to be an ironic joke. It turns out this is a toy convention. There's little kids in the crowd. There's a Santa. And he presents his new invention to them as if it was the hottest toy of the season. So I guess that's supposed to be kind of funny. After all, it's really just a toy. And it says, the end. I don't know about this comic. It doesn't have much of a story. It's just a lot of kick-ass fun. Next we have Stiltskin number 2, part 2, by Shane Oakley. So we're continuing, basically, the main character, Stiltskin. He's reminiscing. Well, his name's Egon, for real. But he's going through his own life. So in 1973, he's 17 years old. And he's actually having a good time. He has some friends. He's kind of hanging out with some cool kids. And for the first time in his life, he's kind of content. But then when he gets home, his dad tells him, son, I got cancer. I'm going to fight it, but we'll see what happens. I don't know. It's so weird how my terrible memory, when I was reading these comics the past, few days, I was like, man, this guy totally could have drawn for Mr. X, that 80s comic. It's got that crazy angular weirdness to it. And then I forgot. And I looked on my shelf and I was like, oh yeah, he did draw Mr. X. I think that's the first place I saw him, back in the late 80s. So Egon still has that his one best friend. And they tell a story about some house in the town, which is I guess it's a murder house. So they tell a little story about what happened there. Doesn't really have anything to do with Egon. It's just a good little story. So his father goes through chemo. He's going to live for a while, but he can't work. So Egon gets a job. He works at this factory, the night shift. And there's a janitor there. It's pretty much just him and the janitor. And they smoke pot together, and this guy's pretty cool. So then his tutor, Anna, who basically was the bright spot in his life all through his childhood, she informs Egon that she has to leave. She can't teach him anymore. She has a job in the city teaching LD kids, and because she's a sweetheart, so she's always going where she's needed the most. And this kills Egon. Egon he never realized just how much he loved her. And so between that and his father's illness, Egon's back to just not really digging life anymore. Love these, just the way he lays out a page. Just spotting the blacks. It's really appealing, even though his art style isn't my favorite. But some of the faces look a little dumb to me or weird. But I really like the way he just lays out things, his style, basically. He starts having really bad dreams. Then he loses his job. And then there's a little coda here where these three kids, basically his dad dies and he's left the house. So he's almost like a ghost in his own house. It's just him puttering around the house. I guess he's got a little money, so he's not starving. But it almost seems like his house now becomes the local haunted house, like the kids talk about. They're like, yeah, there's a monster who lives in there. These three kids, we should go see him. I hear he's covered in stitches and scars. Of course, they exaggerate the way kids will do. And they throw a rock in his window. And they run away laughing, these mean kids. So it just seems to be the last straw. And Egon says, I can't spend the rest of my life in this shitty, hateful town. I gotta do something. And he says, my choice was made, to be continued. We got the contributors page, and that's it. Oh, this is not it. We have another Bookshelf Phantom by Stephen Weissman. And I don't quite get the shtick of this comic. I get the basic shtick is that, what's his face? Phineas Page. He works in a library and he can enter books. And he seems to just enter random books to try to help the people in them. So he jumps into The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. And he's like, oh, I'm not going to let those kids die in the fire like in the book. So he tries to rescue them. It's just a very odd concept. I like how they keep calling him a Soch. I don't know if you remember that from The Outsiders. That's what they call like the preppy rich kids. They're a soch. But then he realizes that, well, I don't even get this part. After rescuing everyone, the house is on fire, but everyone's out safely. He says, "Oh no, Margaret Mitchell's masterpiece gone with the wind. I must save it." So I guess there's a copy there. He runs in, and then one of the kids that he just helped save runs in after him, and it looks like they all die. But not Phineas. But we see him back at the library, and he's charred and blackened. I think maybe Phineas can't die in the books. So that's 128. Let's get to 129 here. Look at this beautiful cover by Kelley Jones. This is featuring his character, The Hammer. I've never read The Hammer, so this was nice. A weird little story. Just a one-shot of The Hammer. Give me a little taste of it. I have a feeling the comic's very different than this little short story, though. But just look at this goodness and ridiculous musculature. It doesn't exist. This guy is an alien, apparently. He's from another dimension, so maybe he has an excuse this time. So, oh God, look at this Kelley Jones. This guy has a very phallic head. It's beyond phallic. I mean, it even has throbbing veins in it, it looks like. I love these little faces here with the speckled effect. And of course, he always loves doing this stuff. God. If you guys have watched my channel for a little while, you know what a fan of Kelley Jones I am. So much beautiful inking and stippling. So apparently the Hammer, he's this alien. He basically lives to fight evil. And it seems like it's very involved with the Cthulhu mythos. In fact, I think in this, they're walking through the town of Arkham in this story. So he has this buddy. And this basically is just like almost like a philosophical debate between the two as they walk through town. And they're heading to a burger stand to have some lunch. But on the way, they're chatting. And basically this Earth guy, he says, "Doesn't your ESP ever pick up anything good or decent?" Because I guess he has ESP and he can see evil in his brain and then seek it out to fight it. And the Hammer says, "I see what I see." His friend says, "Maybe if you just used your eyes to see with, you wouldn't have such a burr up your butt." So basically their debate is that it's kind of just like this guy's trying to convince him there's good in the world. And not everything's about evil, horrible people. But as he says this, the drawings by Kelley Jones kind of prove him wrong. Because, you know, looks like a nice little New England town. And everything's pretty nice. But as the camera zooms in on various things they walk by, which they don't notice, like we see this dog pawing at a human skull just in the middle of the woods. Who knows what happened there? The friend points out, "Oh, look at that guy taking out his family on a Sunday drive." Isn't that sweet? See, there's some sweetness in the world. And then inside the car, which the Hammer sees with his, I guess, astral self, it's actually this couple, and they're kidnapping this guy's kids from his ex-wife. And the kids look terrified. Oh, man. These panels are so good. This art is juicily delicious. They also talk about, like, apathy versus, doing something. The Earth guy, his friend, is kind of just saying, there's nothing wrong with being apathetic. It just means that you're happy with the way things are. Here's his depiction of Cthulhu here. "Apathetic people taste very sweet to the great Cthulhu," says the Hammer. They walk by a sewer, and as we look down, we see some corpse, probably killed by foul play. So basically the friend of the Hammer is a Pollyanna, He's just really trying to say, like, oh, not everything's so bad. Not everything's black and white. They walk by this apartment. And a kid opens the refrigerator door. It looks like, I guess it's his mom's head in there. This is a pretty bad town. They're in Miskatonic Park. This is some amazing Jones art. Seeing it in black and white. And you can really see the right side in some of these panels. Which is fine by me. I wish there was 20 Bernie Wrightsons out there. Well, now I wish there was just one. He points out the initials of two lovers carved on a tree. And he says, see, look at this. And it turns out it was carved by this woman moments before she killed her ex-lover. I guess her lover was dumping her. She says, I'm not some college girl's experiment. I told you, Tammy. I told you this is forever. I'm not quite sure what's going on here, but I think her entrails are coming out of her body. So they finally make it to the burger stand. And he orders 12 hamburgers. The hammer does. I guess he's a different physiology than we do. And he actually cracks a smile and says, Carl. Okay, the guy's name is Carl. Says, Carl, perhaps you have given me something to consider. So that made him happy in all this shitty world of evil. He's like, they make good hamburgers. So I got to get more of these hammers. I don't care if the stories are ridiculous and stupid. Just the art. Just to get more Kelley Jones art. We got 2 pages of letters. And now we have chapter 3 of Stiltskin. And let me check something real quick. Okay. So Egon goes to the big city. Looks like New York City. And he's thrilled. As soon as he gets there, he realizes, yeah, this is where I'm meant to be. He gets a room in a hotel, and just hearing the sounds of the city, he's enraptured. He's enchanted by everything about the city. So he's pretty happy for the first time in a long time. He's trying to get a job, not doing very well. You know, he's like 2 feet tall, doesn't have much experience. And someone says, I should mention, he's trying to be a writer. And someone gives him a tip. He says, hey, you should go down, you should hang out at Henny's bar. All the writer types hang out there. So he meets this guy who's kind of a big mooch. He's always trying to extend his credit at the bar. Apparently he's been writing the Great American Novel for years. He sounds like he's just a layabout. And the bartender's kind of ribbing him about it. And his name's Elliot. So Egon buys him a beer, and it starts beginnings of a nice relationship. Elliot takes him to a strip club, and he introduces him to one of the strippers, and they actually hit it off. I don't think this is a prostitution thing. Maybe it is. But so he loses his virginity. And of course, this makes him very happy, even though he still needs a job. So he hangs out with Elliot. Elliot becomes his best friend. And I guess Elliot's quite the ladies' man. But he also has issues about seeming weak and vulnerable. He loves women, but he never wants to show it. He doesn't want to be vulnerable. Meanwhile, Egon is continuing to see this stripper. And I believe her name is... I'll figure it out in a second. So then he gets an interview. This guy calls him up out of nowhere. And he says, I want to offer you a job, Egon. You got a big talent for a small guy. And hold on a second. And basically the stripper's name is Holiday. And this guy says, hey, Holiday told me about you. She says you got a huge pecker. You've got a natural talent. And we find out that this guy's a porn producer, and he wants Egon to be a porn star. And his first day on the set goes well, and it looks like he's on his way. He gets invited to an industry party, and he meets another little person, a female little person. Her name's Bella, and she seems to instantly take a liking to Egon. She's just mainly because she's like, I've never met anyone who looks like me before, who's my size. He doesn't seem that taken with her, though, to be honest. She keeps trying to be like, we should do something. He's like, I gotta go to bed early. But she does convince him to go out for pizza. And as a little foreshadowing, she drops her purse and there's a gun in it. And she just says, it's just for, you can't be too careful in the city. It's just for protection. She gives him a kiss goodnight. And Egon finally gets to go home to his warm bed, which he's looking forward to. Now, this is really annoying, guys. I don't understand this. I try to find news about this on the internet, but this is supposed to be a 4-part serial. This is chapter 3. Number 4 is nowhere to be found. It's not in the next issue of Dark Horse Presents. It's not in the next, at least 10 issues. Maybe 7. I have 7 more issues after this about. And it's in either. I don't know. There's no explanation. Maybe there will be in a future issue in the letter page, but very odd. So we never get to find out what happens. Which is a damn shame because I'm really kind of into this story. Now we have the second Dan and Larry story by Dave Cooper. And, oh God, I love this just bizarro settings. He just invents everything. The trees are weird and different. The animals are kind of his own invention, even though they look like lambs. So we see Dan and Larry talking to the shepherd, and they're like, what's the matter with this one? He's got like these wiggly legs that are kind of useless. So the shepherd says, hey, would you guys do me a favor? I got to go to the city. Would you mind watching the herd? But then Larry says, hey, Dan, you wouldn't mind running an errand, would you? That way me and Terry, the shepherd, can catch up on old times. So I guess he gives him this errand. Which is a little confusing because I thought this guy had to go to the city on an errand. But now Dan sends Larry. I love this panel here. Look at the level of illustration here. This is like R. Crumb worthy. Like line work and shading. Really nice stuff. So I guess he has a little map that says Tammy here. So he's got to meet this woman. Seems to be a prostitute. She's just hanging out the corner. And Dan says, I'm supposed to pick up that thing. She's like, follow me. Dan can't stop staring at her ass, her very oddly shaped buttocks. And there's another one of those, I think this is those weird water fountains. And it's broken too. It's just splooging shit all over. God, just the way he draws this, whatever that is. It's so nice. So back at this lady's apartment, Tammy's apartment, there's lots of weird, repulsive things. She's got like panties on the line that just have a blood stain in the crotch. And there's a dragonfly with a bite taken out of it. This weird dragonfly. So she gives him this bizarre device. God, look at that crazy anatomy of her body. Tammy says, I found this on the street. Oh, I'm sorry. Talking about the dragonfly now. And I've been studying it with a magnifying glass. And she says that a wasp was eating it from the inside. She could actually hear the wasp chewing. It's kind of horrifying. And then it looks like she's about to seduce Dan. She says, you like the way I dress, don't you? And she leans back in her chair and she says, how old are you? And he says, 12. And she's all like, 12? Shit, man, get the fuck out of here. She's like terrified because she almost fooled around with this 12-year-old. Oh, look at this beautifulness. This is so good. I love this. Dave Cooper doesn't draw like this anymore. Well, I mean, he barely does comics anymore, except until recently he did that one like last year, I think, or this year. So Dan comes back, and he says, basically, Larry starts yelling at him. He's like, oh, a little too late for that, isn't it? All the sheep are dead. except for the one with the wiggly legs. So I don't even understand what that device was maybe supposed to inoculate the sheep or something. They don't really explain it. It doesn't really matter. It's just this bizarre world that Dave Cooper has created. Oh man, such a weird design. Contributors page. And now we have Zombie Kid by Jim Mahfood. And I'm not sure how to pronounce that guy's name. Zombie Kid is a vegetarian zombie, so he's okay. He doesn't go around eating people. And he's hanging out with his girlfriend. And this is such a Generation X comic where this girl is saying some wry kind of a sardonic, she has a wry sardonic take on chips. Or just, like, it seems like Generation X, which, that's my generation, we were very obsessed with nostalgia. Talking about the Brady Bunch all the time and making up funny shit about it. So she's talking about how weird it is that in Chips, you never once saw them pull their guns. There were cops. There was no violence in Chips ever. There's car chases maybe. So it's not that good. It's not that clever or anything. But then this weird robed figure who looks like a plague victim says the end is here. And Zombie Kid pulls out a gun, blows his brains out, and his girlfriend says, thank you. And he says, see, I actually get to use my gun. I love you, honey. So just very dumb. Not a fan of Jim Mahfood. I never really read his stuff, but even his style is off-putting to me. It's, and he just seems very interested in being hip to the jive, more than being a good cartoonist. Next we have number 130, and it's one of my favorite cartoonists in the world, Patrick McEown on the cover. And we're going to see a lot more inside. So this is called Wanted Man. And it features the private detective Frank Glock. And of course, we've seen this so many times in comics. It's a total, pastiche of hard-boiled detective fiction. He's the narrator, saying all these kind of tough guy lines. But the one unique thing about him is he doesn't carry a gun. He says, don't let the name fool you. I don't pack any heat. No iron, just irony and a little brass. And they show some brass knuckles. I love this little, now all I got is this note. Just the way of doing that little caption here. So basically, his secretary, it looks like she's been abducted. She's missing. There's a note typed on her typewriter that says she'll be at the Paradise Hotel, room 13 at midnight. If you ever want to see her again, you better show. So he jumps out of his chair and is going to run around the city trying to get information about who has a grudge against him, who would kidnap his secretary. So then we get this special bonus feature, Zombie Queen with an X. And we see her and her Wolverton-esque like pet monster. Or we'll find out later, it's more than just a monster, just more than her pet. And we'll continue later in a second after we look at these pages. So basically this is just an excuse for Patrick McEown to just introduce all these random characters. Almost everyone gets like a page, and it's just all the guys he's asking for information. So first he talks to the kid, who I love this little character. I guess they've had a history. The kid has helped him out of a scrap a time or two, so he always looks after him. He's an orphan. And his secretary kind of has a motherly affection, maternal affection for the kid, but he doesn't want to be tied down. Just like him, just like Frank. The kid's no fools when it comes to dames. At the bottom of the page, God, look at how Wolverton-esque that is. So she tells her zombie flunkies, the beasts must be fed, now go. And then she says, maybe soon. So I guess it's her lover, this horrible monster. So now he goes to the guy who's the photographer, that's what he calls him, who's basically a smut merchant. He always goes to him for information. Meanwhile, in the Zombie Queen comic, the zombie army is on the prowl, looking for fresh flesh. And we see a couple at the graveyard about to make out. Back to the story. He goes to the strip club. Frank goes to a strip club. One of his exes is there. She's kind of pissed at him. He ends up having to promise her a dinner, even though he broke up with her because she was getting too attached, and he likes to be independent. So he has commitment issues. Next, he goes to Lucius, a jazz trumpeter, and he helped him out of a scrap. So we get all these little stories. These are almost like past case files of Frank Locke. In the comic on the bottom, we just see zombies attacking people in the city. And they're all yelling, food. So now we get to meet this underworld figure. He's kind of a cult leader. He doesn't know anything either. He doesn't know who could be after Frank, trying to get to him. And as he thinks of all these past cases, he realizes, he's like, come to think of it, my secretary helped infiltrate this cult. I owe her big time. She risked her life for me. And it becomes more of a theme in these stories where he's like, yeah, now that I think about it, my secretary totally, saved my bacon in that case. He goes to talk to these two underworld scumbags. Zombie Queen, we just see more really fun zombie action. So the zombie army brings all of these humans back to the monster to eat. The Zombie Queen says, he's still hungry. Bring more food. Now back to the Frank Locke story. So, once again, just another little mini story here about this gangster, the Stench, I think they call him, because he has this weird skin disease, so he looks like a monster and he smells terrible, but he's got this really hot girlfriend. And he says, my secretary pulled my fat out of the fire the last time, in fact. The more I think about it, I can't count the times she saved my hide. If we get through this alive, I swear I'm gonna. And he's thinking about her. So finally, it's midnight, so he's got to get to that hotel room. He didn't find any information all day. And when he opens up the door, it's his secretary in a nightie. It was all her plan. She takes off her clothes, and Frank is just, he's just like, ah. And it looks like his commitment issues might be over, because he's already really likes his secretary. Now he realizes when she takes her clothes off, she's really fucking hot. And so at the end, on the Zombie Queen strip, we see all the zombies gathered around this hotel, and they're at room 13, and inside the door you can hear the secretary going, ooh, Frank. So I don't think this was ever continued, but it's not looking good for Frank and the secretary. We have a combined letter page contributors page. I guess they ran out of room. And now we have the third Dan and Larry story by Dave Cooper. Man, this art is killing me. It's just so gorgeous. I love it. I like this little shout out to, I assume it's to Rick Veitch, maybe? There's this school under construction, by Veitch Construction Incorporated. So Dan sneaks in, and I guess all of his buddies are there. They've been hanging out in this abandoned school. And we get a lot of funny banter between these guys. They all call him Duckhead. It seems like they all want to fuck this girl. They keep staring at her tits, and almost every other panel, they're all like, eh. There's one dog kid, he's a dog. He just puts his snout up her skirt, and she kicks his ass. So these guys ask Dan about his relationship with Larry. They're like, dude, what's up with that guy? Don't you think it's weird that some 26-year-old dude wants to hang out with a 12-year-old? And of course, one of them ribs him about, oh, it's your boyfriend. And they even talk about the pervy comics he draws. And It's like, yeah, he's drawing all these little boys all the time. And Dan tries to defend him by saying, they're not little boys, they're gnomes. So instead of elves, it's gnomes. And then someone else comes into their little basement hideaway. This guy named Eddie. Eddie, I guess he just got out of juvie. Everyone's like, Eddie, how's it going? But Eddie instantly goes up to Dan and pushes him. And looks like he's going to kick his ass. And he says, I heard what you said about me while I was in juvie. Joey here told me. Joey looks like a rat. The girl kind of defends Dan, says, oh, come on, don't hurt him. And the guy storms off. He's like, I'm not going to hang out with this fucko. So it seems to have put the kibosh on this fun get-together. So Dan, even though he just said that maybe I won't be hanging out with Larry so much because Larry's just always in a weird mood, he goes over to visit Dan. I'm sorry, to visit Larry. And he's not home. So he gets home. And we meet his parents. And the mother's very cheery, kind of oblivious. He even asks his mom, he says, Mom, do you think it's weird that I hang out with a 26-year-old guy? And she says, oh, he seems like a nice young man, and he lets you help him with his little books. That's what she calls the comics work. We see Dan is already, an artist. He's got his drawing table. And he looks at one of the comics, Gnomes in Dimension 12. And this is pretty much what they look like, those Elf Lord comics. Well, they wouldn't show like an actual penis, but they'd be wearing like bare-chested little bikini bottoms, basically. And they just look like little boys with big ears, like elf ears. So the mom says, hey, somebody called and said, you're a fucking weasel. And she says, do you know anything about that? And he says, no, Mom, must have been a crank call. And he nervously, he's drawing naked ladies in his notepad. So he kind of starts scratching it out so the mother can't see. So that's the end of that one. Here's a pretty interesting historical story. Mary Walker, the Woman. Now, this is written by Doug Murray, the guy who wrote The Nam, that comic with the beautiful Michael Golden art. He did a lot of things, but that was probably his most famous comic. And it's drawn by Roberta Gregory of Bitchy Bitch fame and Naughty Bits. And it's her doing a totally straight style. And I'm pretty sure this is a true story. I don't think Doug Murray would have made it up. But it starts in 1862, Civil War. And Mary Walker is a military surgeon. She's the only woman there. And she's very brave and very dedicated to healing these poor wounded guys. But she's constantly getting flack. General Burnside tells her that she's got to stop wearing pants. It's unladylike. And she's all like, fuck you. I'm saving guys' lives here. I don't give a shit about being ladylike. And as the years go by, she wants a commission. They won't make her an officer, even though she's totally should be. She's a doctor, a medical surgeon. All the other ones are officers. In fact, the bureaucrats in Washington are actually always talking about well, we should stop her from doing this. It's unladylike for a woman to be on the front lines. She probably doesn't have the bravery or the strength anyway. And then we see her, obviously she does. And she saved probably hundreds of guys' lives. So at one point, the rebels have overtaken the lines, have broken through the lines. Everyone bugs out, but Mary's like, hey, I got to take care of my patients. I'm not going anywhere. So the rebels capture her. Of course, they're mocking her because she's wearing pants. And luckily, though, they trade her for a Confederate captive. They do that in war sometimes. They trade prisoners, because who knows what they would have done to her. So she makes it back to the northern lines, the Union lines, and they're still telling her she can't be an officer, even though she was traded for an officer. The prison swap, but they still won't make her one. So they finally basically say, no, you can't do this anymore. You're going to be working at this women's hospital. I'm sorry, a women's prison hospital. All the women there don't like her. They think she's putting on airs because she wears her military uniform. So the war ends, and she basically says she's still asking for a promotion. She still wants to be, recognized. And they actually tell her, it's like, officially, you were never in the army. The War Department won't recognize that you were ever in the army. So she, in a rage, she writes letter after letter to Congress, the president, newspapers. And finally, the president's talking to his, I guess, like chief of staff or something. And he says, what can we do to shut this woman up? And he says, you could give her what she wants. Simple enough solution. I haven't really commented on the art. I'm not a fan of Roberta Gregory's comics or her art style. This is not bad. It's nice. It's interesting to see her draw straight, and I think it works for this story. So then we fast forward to 1916, and I guess there's some review board that is looking through all the Medal of Honor recipients, because they ended up giving her the Medal of Honor to shut her up, back in 1870 or something. But now there's this review board in 1916 who are going over to see who really deserved a Medal of Honor. And they look at her case and they say, a general says, she was not even in the army. So they they stripped her award away and ordered her to return the medal. But they didn't reckon with her. They don't know Mary very well, because she storms over to Washington, D.C. And she basically says, I'm going to come here every day until they reverse their stupid order and reinstate my Medal of Honor. She tells a reporter about this. And then as she's walking down the Capitol steps, she trips and falls and dies. Pretty weird ending for such a, heroic, courageous figure. She just died by tripping down the steps. But finally, in 1977, a special act of the Department of the Army, her medal was restored. Mary Walker's medal. The only medal ever awarded to a woman. So she's the only, as far as back when the story was written, she's the only Medal of Honor winner ever. That's a very interesting story. I did not know this at all. This historical, true story. And now we have another Phineas page. This is the Marquis de Sade's Justine versus the Bookshelf Phantom. That's Phineas's, I guess, alter ego, his cool name. In The Misfortune of Virtue. So we see the captions here are the voice of Justine. I guess she has just been assaulted by these men, and this old lady and her goons, they robbed her. And once again, Phineas jumps into this book to try to help her. Because in the book, Justine, I believe she loses all faith in humanity. He doesn't want that to happen. He says, she of course doesn't trust him. She says, you're just another depraved vulture trying to take advantage of me. He's like, no, I just want to show you there's goodness in the world. And she's really having a hard time believing it. She says, yeah, you're probably going to tie me up against a tree or something and have your way. And he says, listen, why don't you tie me up against a tree to prove, what kind of bad guy would put himself at such a disadvantage? So you can tie me up to that tree. So she does. And it seems like a lot of time passes because it's that evening. And it seems like she's softening up to him. She's like, Phineas, maybe we should travel to Grenoble together. And he just says, Sophie? I don't know why he calls Justine Sophie. He says, can I put my belt on now? And it seems like she didn't just tie him to the tree. His pants have dropped. And then she picks up a switch and starts beating him on the bottom, saying, naughty, naughty. And her narration says, I really can't tell you what wretched fever power had taken me over. I was unable to resist beating him helpless. And then I recoiled in horror. And so she was so horrified at what she did, she just runs away. And as she runs away, she realizes, oh my God, I left him tied to the tree, and I didn't treat his wounds. Once again, I am resolved to the path of virtue, which I doubt she's going to stick to. Very interesting little short story there by Stephen Weissman. I like it. So there you go, guys. Dark Horse Presents number 129 through 130. 130. Nope, sorry, I mixed it up. 128 through 130. So this is going to be, I believe, the next Dark Horse Presents look will be the last one. It'll be 131 through 135. It'll probably be out, I don't know, probably before the week is out. So, yeah, it's I'll talk about it more next time, why I don't have all the issues after it. So hope you guys enjoyed looking at these. I sure did, especially because of the Dave Cooper stuff. And I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.